I'm excited.
Why's that?
We have an apparel sponsor, Parry Athletic. Such good gear, and it's incredible. I've been enjoying it.
Bro, George came through, messaged us on the Instagram, said he's been following our program for ages. He's getting stronger and more mobile, and he's got this cool gear company called Parry, and he wants to send us some stuff.
And he told me that his mission was to create the best pair of training shorts ever.
Yeah, he wanted something that he could lift and roll in, and that could accommodate thick, muscular thighs and hips.
And that suits us.
Speaks to us.
Also, what I like is I love the colorful design. It actually looks really cool.
I am the most colorful dude on the mats these days, hands down.
Yeah, you get that kind of expression feel. A lot of other jiu-jitsu gear is kind of a bit boring.
Yeah, it's all like
comparison.
grays and blacks and shit. This stuff is the color and the vibrancy.
It makes you stand out. And I think the thing that I've loved about it is just it feels good. It feels good. It looks good. And you, ladies and gentlemen, can get a discount when you go to checkout. If you go to parryathletics.com, when you go to checkout, put in the code Bulletproof20 and you get 20% off. Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. I have a big question. How much strength is enough? Can you have too much strength? When it comes to BJJ, a lot of people out there trying to get strong, and rightfully so. But are you putting too much time in at the gym and maybe not putting that time somewhere else which could be more beneficial? Now, this came up in conversation, Joseph.
Yeah, so common discussion with people who are of the strength realm. So for the listeners who are not particularly experienced in the strength realm, this is less relevant to your actual situation, but I think it's going to be a good bit of an eye-opener as to what lies ahead for you. So stay tuned. But yeah, for people who've been lifting for a while, we get sort of fixed on chasing certain goals, certain milestones within the strength game, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, people are interested in all sorts of different training modalities, but anyone that's in the gym that's doing strength work, barbell back squats, barbell deadlifts, and, you could say bench presses as well, are like real staples. Pull-ups, like staple strength exercises. Now, I was talking with someone who I think was maybe a purple or a brown belt. They were an older grappler, so late 40s, something like that. And old mate was saying, yeah, I've had a bit of a bad run lately, body's not feeling great. But, I'm going to get back in the gym and I'm going to get back on the deadlifts, and I want to get my deadlift, I want to get it back up. And I asked where is it and where you want to get it to? And I think he said something along the lines of, it was an American fella, so it was talking pounds, but it was basically like, it's at 160 kilos, something like that.
Yep.
And I want to get it up to, 200.
Right. And I mean, 160 kilos, very respectable.
Very respectable.
That's a strong deadlift.
Yeah. And my question to that guy was, that 40 kilo gain in your deadlift, what is that actually going to do for your jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Right? How are you actually going to notice that on the mats? You're going to be more powerful when you pick someone up in a high crotch? Or
the confidence.
Your sprawl ability. Bro, your sprawl got hectic. And this is, so you can see kind of, there's a point of diminishing returns. Now, as we spoke about before, if his deadlift was at 60 kilos, then for him to take it to 100, that's huge.
That's a big jump.
Because that's going from being pretty weak and probably pretty inflexible to now being moderately strong and more flexible.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this, there's a curve of some kind. And when you're earlier on in the journey, those jumps, they really are. That is, oh man, your sprawl got hectic.
Yes.
Right? No hint of irony.
Yes.
Bro, you're feeling so strong. But there's a point where those returns stop actually giving you a return in your performance on the mats.
And it is easier earlier in the journey. Your strength potential.
You just jump.
If we thought of you, if you're hearing this and you thought of you as like an avatar in a video game or something, and you have different skills and qualities, and let's say your strength is only 20% of its full potential, to go from 20% of your potential to 60% is actually way easier than to go from 60 to 80. Once you've expressed a certain level of your athletic potential in the strength realm, that next little bit is so much harder. This is true of many things in life, whether it's like, it could be weight loss. You know, someone loses 20 kilos and they're like, oh, I want to lose another 5 kilos. The last 5 kilos is actually really freaking hard. And the amount of time and energy you're going to have to put in with the deadlift, say, to go from 160 to 200, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's no longer just doing it once a week for 5 sets.
No, you're
need a
in
strategy.
there. Yeah, and you a lot of stuff can derail that. A bad night's sleep can derail that. I know that. Like, if I'm at the upper end of my, kind of strength work, the difference between being able to pull 200 or pulling 220 is like, I didn't sleep that well and I'm dehydrated and man, this is not happening today. And that can do a lot of negative things to yourself mentally, because you're like, I just got to get this imaginary number that I've made up for myself, which at the end of the day, we always relate it back to, is this going to help your jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah. And that's really where we're coming at this today.
So I think there's a couple of things we need to recognize within that. So for old mate, what I actually interpreted...
For those of you out there who do not know the term old mate, we just mean that dude. We're not actually calling him an old man. just for other people. It's an Australian thing. We go, old mate just means like that guy.
So for him, what I understood reading between the lines was that his training is essentially kind of derailed at the moment.
Sure.
And he wants to get back on track. And by getting into the gym and deadlifting, that's him reasserting the train back on the tracks.
I'm back.
Yeah, and that's going to carry over to his jiu-jitsu and all those things. So in that regard, it's like, well, get on there and chase 200 because actually, you need that in order to, get back into the thing.
Feel good.
However, the other side of that, and this is not what I took from this fella, but this is where I think it's important to know what matters to you is, do you love jiu-jitsu, but do you also love the gym? And if you love the gym, then you probably want to get a 200 kilo deadlift just because you do.
Sure.
And it's just like getting a next belt.
Exactly.
Or it's just like upgrading your jiu-jitsu. It's like, well, no, I'm here to get better and I'm into this. I enjoy it. I come to the gym a few times a week and I want to keep progressing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? Like so many people, like I'm working with a woman at the moment. She's a CrossFitter.
Of course.
Right? And a jiu-jitsu person. And she's like, I CrossFit 5 days a week and I roll 6 days a week. Now, instantly for me, I'm like, a lot of red flags there.
That's a lot. It's a lot of work.
But I can see immediately that you are into exercise.
Yes.
Right? So I gotta keep that in mind. It's not all about your jiu-jitsu performance. You love going to the gym as well. I'm sure you've run into it with powerlifters.
Sure.
Where they're like, hey, I'm doing this powerlifting shit, but I also want to do jits.
Yeah, and look, I think the thing is when we talk about these dedicated, hardworking people, and that's the thing you can't take away from someone, right? Like when someone exhibits those really good personal qualities, which is they like to work hard. They don't mind feeling uncomfortable. They seek adversity. Like these are great things, they're great qualities as a human. But you can do that too much. You need to find, it's good to choose a lane to express it in. It doesn't have to be every avenue of your life. And when I talk to people who are in powerlifting, but it's interesting, there's a lot of the powerlifting community getting into BJJ because they're like, it's really hard at the upper end of powerlifting to keep that going because there's a lot of wear and tear in the body. And then they're like, oh, this jiu-jitsu thing's kind of fun. Also, I'm a massive, strong monster. I'm going to squash people. Yeah. But the thing
I think for like a lot of these people from the strength game, it's fun. They're like, man, all these years that I've just been lifting metal, it actually sucks.
Yeah, it's not much fun.
This jiu-jitsu thing is awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah,
playful.
it's like a relief after all these years of grinding.
Sorry. Yeah, but no, here's the thing. Speaking with a couple of some, hardcore lifters who are getting into jiu-jitsu, but they still want to compete in... I've still got this powerlifting meet coming up. Okay. But also I'm going to go to Pan Packs. You're like, maybe that's a little bit in conflict in the sense that if you're plotting to be the strongest you can be, then you're going to put a lot of time and attention on that, which means you're not putting time and attention on other things like doing mobility or like worrying about your jiu-jitsu technique, which is really at the heart of what you need to do well if you're going to compete in jiu-jitsu or just be good at it in general. So this is the thing, like I'm all about efficiency. As inefficient as I might seem, I also know where to allocate energy and when not. Like when I'm not doing certain things, I'm taking a nap or I'm getting horizontal. This is something I learned about Michael Jordan many years ago, that it was recommended to him by like a surgeon, because taller people tend to get joint injuries, that whenever he wasn't training, he should be horizontal for circulation.
Wow, that's such 80s medical advice.
It is. but I thought about it. I was like,
But
well,
yeah, I mean, you can imagine he would be overtrained. Like,
he trains a lot.
Like more rest would have to help.
But it lowers your heart rate. It improves circulation. I was just like, oh, how interesting. So it was just like, yeah, Mike likes to lie down a lot.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, okay, cool, awesome. Take that on board. But that's the thing. When I am not, I was actually saying this to Raylene.
JT's like standing out. He's like, yeah, basically like same height.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I need to lie down too.
It's tough being a tall athlete. It's just recovery. But I was saying to Raylene, even if we just were to take jiu-jitsu out of the equation, being really strong in the overhead position is in some ways almost contrary to be really strong pulling, like horizontal pressing versus horizontal. Like if you want to be amazing at pull-ups, doing heaps of overhead press, depending on how much time you have, it's hard to be good at both.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. If you are determined to get strong, that's really good. But how much is enough? Because who knows? Who could say? Some might be like, no, I need the 200 kilo deadlift, Joe. What are you talking about?
We're about to say right now.
Yeah, we are. We're about to let you know. So
lay some standards down in this bitch.
How much is enough? Because a lot of people are not sure. And we've played with this ourselves. Like I think for me, I actually don't need to be any stronger than I am. If anything, I could probably back the strength off a little bit and work on my conditioning a little bit.
Perish the thought.
But that's it.
Absolutely. You are like a strength athlete, right?
Yeah, that's what I love doing all of the time.
So I had a comment from a guy when I was, I don't know, a couple of phases ago when I was doing some Zercher squats. And for anyone that follows me or Bulletproof on Instagram, see, I always just post clips of my training. Yep. It's always in my stories and shit, and I share it on Bulletproof. And, for me, like upper end barbell stuff it's not wild, right? Like for an average person, they're like, whoa, bro, you're super strong. Sure. But for someone like you, right, JT, or someone that's like into bar, they'll be like, that's pussy weights, right? Like it's maybe
it's not.
Maybe
like
I've just crossed the threshold.
You're talking it down. No, Joe is a very, very strong human.
But here's the thing, right? So I think I was just squatting like, I don't know, 140 kilos, something like that.
Very respectable.
Yeah, and the guy, no, it was deadlifting actually. It was deadlifting, and my deadlift is maybe a little bit more than that, right? Say it's 150. And the guy said to me on Instagram, he was like, "Oh, nice work, man." He's like, "Bro, like legit, you're not pulling super heavy weight there." Something to the effect of, "But I bet you feel strong as on the mats." Yeah. And he was obviously a barbell aficionado, sure. And he's like, "Yo, 150 doesn't even get the warm up in my gym."
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah,
and I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Yeah, like probably, right?" Like, so going back to that thing, 150, 200, 250. Do those three people actually feel that different if their technique on the mats is the same? Now I'm rolling with Adam Childs last night.
Wow.
One of the weakest bitches we know. Respectfully, coach.
Respectfully.
But his jiu-jitsu is strong as
dude.
Right? Like he's
side control.
Yeah, like when he's passing,
face.
you are like, man, this guy is so heavy and so strong. And it's his technique. Yep. Right? And you're like, like we joked about it here, is like he can't, like, I think we got him up to a few pull-ups or whatever. Yeah. But, he would always joke about like, oh, I'm not a good performer in the gym, but put me on the mats and I feel pretty different.
Yes.
And so, that just comes back to this thing of, how much do you actually need to be that person on the mats that, provided your technique is adequate, that you actually feel strong enough and strength is not a weakness for you?
Of course. And the thing that I come back to, and I just ask people, if I'm talking to some random dude and he's like, oh, I want to get better at jiu-jitsu and I like to go to the gym and I want to do more gym, but I want to do more jiu-jitsu. I don't know how to choose. What do I do? I will often say, are you stronger? Are you, like, if we're considering them being opposing things, and they're not opposing, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. Are you better at strength than you are at flexibility? 90% of dudes I talk to are like, yeah, I would consider myself to be stronger than I am flexible. in different ranges of motion. And I'm like, well, that kind of tells you what you need to work on, because jiu-jitsu demands both. It demands strength, but it also demands flexibility. So actually you're holding yourself back in that way. And the biggest issue is we always want to see more weight on the bar or lift a heavier kettlebell or whatever, but that also is not reflective of your control of the weight, because we see obviously many videos of people moving weight not with control. But the thing we're also not talking about is range of motion. So if somebody is very strong within a limited range of motion, then they're not that strong. They're only, they're only using half the zipper, right?
Yeah.
If someone's only squatting to 90 degrees and they're strong there, that's okay. But invariably your knee is going to get put through a bigger range of motion than that. You can't, and this is actually a phrase from Joe, which I don't know where he got it from, but maybe you can say, you can't strengthen range you don't have. If you don't have the range of motion, then you're not truly strong. You haven't fully expressed your body. So this is where something like our standards program comes in, because this is where we actually start to say, well, this is enough, and you also need to be enough over here as well. You want to be well-rounded. So shall we speak to that?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. The idea with standards is that you will build this basic foundation of strength, right? Pulling, pushing, squatting, hinging, simple stuff. But at a point, once you've gotten that to an appropriate level, you will now move away from those basic kind of variations to more challenging or complex variations. So as an example, you work a regular deadlift for a little while, and then you switch to like a split stance deadlift, where now it's more biased towards one leg. Over time, that progresses to a single leg deadlift, where it's now all on one leg. So obviously balance and stability and coordination have a high demand in that variation. And so your strength is going to be down. We're playing with the complexity there so that you are developing.
Hang on, I'll caveat that. You may not be able to lift as much load. It doesn't mean that you're getting weaker.
That's right.
Right. You're getting stronger at that movement.
Yeah. And you're getting stronger in ways that a two-legged deadlift cannot make you.
Exactly.
Like a two-legged deadlift, there is really no challenge on range of motion for most people. There's no challenge on balance. So a whole bunch of things, right? So that's the idea with standards, that we're going, well, yeah, like how do we build that base, and then how do we layer in complexity so that people are getting as much out of these strength and flexibility journeys as possible, versus, hey, let's just get another 5 kilos on your deadlift in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
And that's where, I think that's where it's such a beautiful program. I think that's where probably there's a lot of frustration for some folks, because when that shit hits you, you're like, I can't do this on one leg. You're like, all right, we've shone a light on a deficiency, and you have the choice to either stay in there and develop it and like suck at it for a little bit but get better, or maybe you go, I just want to go back and deadlift.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine.
Yes.
But that's sort of at the heart of what that program is.
Definitely. And the other thing is too, which is good about that, is the ability to progress certain things. Like if you're getting better at a pressing movement, but your squatting is struggling, you can challenge yourself. You can progress the pressing further while working at whatever level you need to for your squat. And I think there's value in that, because everybody is different. Some people get stronger at certain movements quicker, depending on their kind of their body composition and their experience. But here's the thing. We've got to really put it into context. Like, plenty of us focus on what we can see. And this is just humans. We're visual creatures. So we want to see the pecs, the abs, the biceps, the quads. Like, what can we see? We don't talk about, I have a very developed infraspinatus, rotator cuff muscle. We don't think about that. We don't think about our scaps. Now, we know a strong person when we see them, right? We're like, whoa, that person has great posture. You can just say, whoa, they look strong. But also, strength can be expressed as control. So if you try to get somebody, it's quite interesting to always see it. You see like world's strongest man and you're like, wow, these guys are giants. And then you see them try and move around when they're not holding huge weights. They're kind of cumbersome. And there's not actually many of them that are athletically well-rounded. Even though I love strongman. I am the biggest fan. I am such a nerd for it. But when I look at these guys walking around, I think, God, they look borderline disabled. They have limited their ability to move so that they can be strong at these particular exercises. Now, we all know that jiu-jitsu is going to force you into positions that just can't be found anywhere else in life. And we want you to be as prepared as possible for that. So, bearing this in mind, you're lifting. You already feel like you're kind of strong. You want to be a bit stronger. That's cool. How much time are you spending lifting, rolling, and how much time are you allocating to other things? Because if you're injured, can't lift, can't roll, can't anything. And I think that it's really important to acknowledge that trying to get that extra 20 kilos on a squat or a deadlift might actually send you down the path of injury or niggle, which then takes you away from that good thing, which is the fun of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a, to your point there, there's a price to pay to become specialized at a thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to be the world's best strongman, you're paying the price of whatever other functions in your body in order to be at that level, right? What it might be cool because I do get asked this quite a lot on the Instagram, like, how much should I be able to deadlift?
Right.
Like, what's a respectable weight there? What's a target? And I was thinking, like, what do we got? Like deadlift, back squat. I don't know. I guess bench press is one. I don't really with it much.
Look, you can say bench press. I mean, a lot of people use bench press because it's so simple. It's so easy to lie down.
It's kind of a gym state. Like if you're a gym bruh,
yes,
it's a staple.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say, "How much do you bench?" And at that point, I say, "Idiot." No, I don't. I go, "Not that much." But this is what I would say: if you can't deadlift your own body weight, you need that. You need that because if you think that you're going to wrestle somebody your own size, your own body weight, you need to be able to tolerate being able to create hip extension and stand up if you're in someone's guard or whatever that might be. But there's like levels to that game. I believe the top end, like what is enough, is 2 times body weight or a bit less than that.
Yeah.
You don't need...
Between 1.5 and 2 times.
1.5 and 2 times your own body weight. You don't need more than that.
So if you're like a 70 kilo human, that's between 105 and 140 kilograms.
Yes.
For some reps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's...
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Awesome. That's great.
Back squatting?
Back squat, look, you should be able to probably more like your own body weight to 1.5.
Yep.
So would make the demand a bit less, but here's where it would be more demanding. Ass to grass.
Yeah, what's your range of motion?
Yeah. 90 degrees. Look, don't get me wrong. I train to 90 for a portion of my squatting, but that's not all year round. Like I will reduce the weight and work on my range and pauses and all kinds of other stuff. And it is so much harder. It's so much harder to go from parallel, like, 90-degree angle, like bring your butt down to your heels. Like there's so much more demanded of your ankles and everything else.
Yeah.
So if you can squat your body weight, A to G, that's pretty good.
Yeah, agreed.
And reaching for more than that is maybe not as helpful as it seems.
And I think the other cool thing about these is you can attain these sort of if you deadlift once a week and you do some other strength training, like you do 2 workouts a week, but focused deadlifting is in one of those sessions, you should get there.
Yes.
In time, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas to go from like 1.5 to, 2 times, to go beyond that, you need to start deadlifting 2-3 times a week. Like it has to become a pursuit.
Yeah, you got to really focus on that skill.
What about, I can think of a fellow I know, a black belt who is posting a thing, he's chasing 20 pull-ups. And he's like, last year or 2 years ago I was at 10. This year I'm at like 14 or 16 and the goal is to get to 20.
20 is tough. I think for most people
20,
getting 10 is...
Yeah, like if we're talking about how much is enough, 8 is plenty.
Yeah.
Like 8 pull-ups, good ones.
5 chest to bar.
Overhand grip. Yeah, like as deep as you can. Like for me, man, great. Like if you want to chase 20, you totally can.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good.
But I'm not feeling the difference in your seatbelt or front headlock from you at 5 reps to 20 reps.
Who's going to carry the boats?
Who said that? Is that a Goggins
That's
line?
all Goggins.
I hear that one so often. I'm like,
oh, man. They don't know me, son. Look, don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of value in the pursuit.
Yeah.
Like to push yourself to get to the next level.
Yeah.
But you could also say, how is your overhead press? I believe it's probably the most underrated thing because everyone says bench, right? But if you can be strong horizontally like horizontal press. That's how we kind of refer to it. Like a vertical press is way harder and tells us a lot more about your posture, your core, everything like that. So I actually believe a better litmus test of somebody's upper body strength is whether it's a barbell or a pair of kettlebells, like how much weight can you press overhead? Now, I would say 0.75 of body weight is pretty strong. If you can strict press on a barbell or a kettlebell or dumbbell equivalent, your body weight, you are a strong human. But I don't think you need to take it there. I think half body weight to 0.75 is a very strong overhead position.
Yeah, I'd agree. So kind of like folded into those, which, you know, we touched on, is the quality piece. But I think it's worth mentioning a second time, because it's one thing to be able to perform those feats, and then it's one thing to be able to perform them really well and to be able to truly own it, and for someone to look at it and go, that's a good back squat. Like that's like nice technique there.
Yeah.
Versus, some of the shit we see out there, right? Like just a lack of awareness of how the thing looks, or the range that you're hitting, or the control that you're expressing. I think for a lot of people, and maybe sort of more novice strength people, they kind of don't consider those things. It's like, did I get the weight up? Yes or no?
Yeah. And a lot of people, because you've also got to understand that accessories are the key to making money in a business, right? People wearing wrist wraps, people wearing weight belts, people wearing lifting shoes, people wearing knee sleeves and all kinds of shit. You can't wear any of that shit on the mat. Don't do it. If you can't lift it without gear, then you don't really got it, bro. Like, don't do it. And I've had people say to me, yeah, but we're not practicing to be weaker by putting this on. We're practicing to be stronger. But I'm like, yeah, but I can't like cinch up my weight belt when I go to like try and pick Joey up and slam him. It's not happening. You have to have the strength and the control in your torso and your core without any external help in any way. So this is what I'd say. Like, for example, like stone lifting, I don't use tack. I don't like tacky, which is like a synthetic glue stuff that a lot of strongmen use, because when I go to pick up a person, I'm never going to be able to do that. Sometimes I will use a little bit of belt grip, more on my hands than anything. But yeah, pretty much. But generally I just use chalk. And the other thing that I always stress with people is like, if you have to wear straps for deadlifting, then you need to work on your grip. Like, you should be strong enough to just be able to grip the bar to lift the weight.
Yeah, I think definitely too, at that foundational level we're talking about today. Yeah. Like, no straps at that range. If you want to go beyond that, okay, maybe there's a discussion to be had.
Maybe.
But yeah, no, I agree.
And so it all comes back to, you've only got so much time and energy, right? And we all want to be strong. But I think, like, it's funny, the thing that Joe just had mentioned about the guy saying, oh, I'm sure you're really strong. Like, you know, it's funny. It was like you know how people have a humble brag? That sent like a backhanded compliment. It was like, yo, that weight ain't shit, but you might kick my ass on the mats.
Yeah. Hurt a little bit, but I was like, fair, it's true.
Well, whatever. I actually don't think that's fair. Like, a lot of people can look at weight on the bar, but I can tell you, Joe is one of the strongest humans I roll. I roll lots of different people. His ability to apply force in a jiu-jitsu context is good. And I don't like giving this guy compliments.
Yeah, so if you're listening, guy that sent me that message, the guy, I am strong.
Suck it up. I'm telling you, you just know if you tie up and you try and grab Joe's neck, it's going to be very hard to snap this guy down.
But that's the piece, isn't it? It's this diversity of strength.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we're getting at with standards, where it's like, if I just deadlift all year long, well, I'm only going to be good at that. Yes. Whereas if it's like, bit of single leg, bit of that, bit of Zercher deadlift, bit of bags, stones.
Bit of variety.
Okay, my conventional barbell deadlift isn't going up on a steady trajectory, but I'm getting all these other trajectories that are going up, and that equals like a roundedness of, and I think that's, you know, that's what, when you feel like our strength, someone that is flexible and has this diversity, you're like, holy shit, like it's tough.
It's a much harder thing to deal with. It's way easier to deal with somebody who's like stiff and strong and doesn't move much, because you can outmaneuver them. And then obviously dealing with someone who's hyper flexible, and that's tricky too. But if they're weak, you can overcome that as well. But if you get that good balance of both, then wow, that's a real handful of a person to deal with. And this is the key for you. If you're in the gym, or even if you just train from home and you're doing it twice a week and you feel like you're getting better, then that's cool. And you don't need to add 20 kilos. You don't need to add 40 kilos to be strong enough for jiu-jitsu. Incremental increase is great. But actually, what's even better than that, and this is going to sound controversial, strong enough is being healthy, fit, and strong year round. And what I'd say is the amount of people who push the envelope in the gym, which is great, achieve an outcome, but then get injured and are then off the mats and not in the gym, that f***s you. So strong enough is being able to do it year round and bringing in, like Joe said, a degree of variety. This increases your bandwidth for strength, physical stress, and also just being a beast on the mat. So I think there's also something to be said now about being strong at different things with a variety of activities.
Yeah. Which, we got to wrap it there because we're going over the time. But yeah, absolutely. Like that's what we're trying to build, right? Mm-hmm. And I would say if anyone who's hearing this hasn't tried standards, man, go check that out.
Definitely.
Check it out. You can get it, bulletproofforbjj.com, start a free trial and rip into standards. Hit us up if you need any help. Thanks, guys.